Hello uglies, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jer and we are talking episode 6 of Boulet Brothers Dragula season 666. This is the Monochromatic Monsters Challenge. I loved this. This was so fun. I love a color theme floor show and this episode did not disappoint me at all. Let's get into it. So first off, I want to say a lot of y'all hated that musical last week. I got comment after comment, not only on YouTube, but also in my Twitch live stream and just conversations I was having with other people about this episode that hated this. I seem to be the only person that actually liked that musical. I don't know. I think it's fun. I think camp is a critical piece of horror. I think when you look back at a lot of really old school horror, it is full of camp. It is full of silly moments, and I think that is an important tenet of Dragula is camp, and that's why I liked it. I thought it had an old school vibe to it. I thought it had a sensibility about it that read many decades ago, and for that I enjoyed it. But y'all hated it. I am still really gagged that the contestants did not play dirty last week. I was fully expecting them to put Gray and Auntie in the bottom and probably snipe out Gray. And I'm willing to bet they are completely regretting that decision because if Gray had gone home last week, I think this would have been Asia's third win that she would have scooped up. Auntie was also high up there, but I just don't see her scooping the win this week. I also wonder if that means Pie would have been in the top 3. And Pie's look was not my most favorite look. I actually was kind of gagged that it was safe overall. So I don't know who would have been the other top 3er, but I'm wondering if they regretted their decision this week because it certainly started spreading out wins a little bit more, but maybe it's a good thing that Gray's still there so Asia doesn't have 3 right now. In the cold open, the ghouls are talking about strategy in the cauldron. They're trying to suss out how everybody's sort of feeling right now strategy-wise, but the best strategy is to be good. I understand that Dragula is a part social game this season because they're putting curses on each other and they're voting for who's going to be in the bottom, and that is a strategy. But if your drag is not meeting the parameters, having a mental strategy of how you're going to play the game doesn't actually have any bearing. Like, I can tell people all day long, I have a strategy, but if my drag is bad or not as good as others, what the hell does my strategy matter? So I think the conversation was interesting, but also a little silly because some of these contestants are just not at the same level as each other. Just my thoughts, I'm not gonna say any names. We get a fun little fright feat where they have to beat their mugs with some old school makeup, and we saw a bunch of silly camp funnies that I really enjoyed. It just felt very cheesy old silent movie, and again, I love camp. I thought it was a good time. Aurora calling Pie Danny DeVito was psychotic and kind of dark-sided and evil. But Pie did win the fright feat, which I totally thought was deserved. I thought Pie looked the best. And they get a curse to put blindness on one of the other contestants. Now, of who's left, I would look at everyone strategically and think, these ones are the weakest, these ones are the strongest. We've seen every single time that someone gets a curse that usually they're fine because they're good at what they do. So a curse is not going to hurt them. It's not going to make them stumble in the way that you think it's going to. So we'll sort of cripple someone who's already not as strong as the others. So I would have singled out one of the 3 weaker competitors, because there are 3 of the weaker ones in this group. I would have singled out one of them and tried to make sure that they went home by making sure they were in the bottom. That's what I would have done. I would have never wasted my time with Gray. I think that's really just asking for trouble because they are doing votes this season multiple times. They are giving curses to each other. I would not want to be Pie and having to have Gray win a fright feat and then put a terrible curse on me later, or vote for me to be in the bottom. I would snipe out someone who's got virtually no chance of making it to the top 3 and making sure that I use that curse appropriately. That's what I would have done playing strategy-wise, and that is the strategy that I don't think anybody was even thinking about. Pi and Auntie had an interesting conversation about starting their own alliance, but Auntie wants to take out Asia, and Auntie thinks that Pi might be a little bit of a sneaky snake and might blip on Asia. I just don't see that happening. I see Pi as being someone who is very loyal. Now, maybe I'm completely off base, and maybe in like a week or two I will completely be gagged. But I see Pi as being very loyal to Asia. I see them as being someone who sees that this is going to probably be the winner and wanting to get as far in the competition as possible by being aligned with them. I don't see them breaking that alliance, even though Auntie is very good at what they do. I see Pi not flipping on Asia, and I actually see Pi maybe pulling Asia aside to be like, yo, Auntie wanted to join an alliance with me, but wants to take you out. So we need to figure out how to get them out of here so that you and I can go to the end. I see that as happening. I do want to say, when they walked into the cauldron for the day of the floor shows, I guarantee that they knew that Violet was gonna be there, because one of those contestants, as they were walking in, did Violet's iconic line from Drag Race Season 7, ooh la 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 la. But they said it in a different cadence, because in 7, Violet said ooh la 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 la. But this contestant, whoever it was, off camera, said the exact number of laws in a slightly different cadence. There is no way they did not know that Violet was going to be there. They knew. So let's talk about the floor show. First off, I love that the boulets are in theme with the regular contestants. I love when hosts of a drag competition match the runway theme of the week. It's always very fun to see, and we don't always get that from the boulets. They're usually doing what they're doing, and so to have them in a monochromatic look, blacks and whites and grays, was really fun. I liked seeing them in that assignment and what the boulets would look like. I loved seeing them in prosthetics and seeing a really heightened glam and also a very scary look. I loved this throwback to old Hollywood. I loved the articulation on the mouth. I also loved Violet Chachki this week. This is probably one of the best judges we've ever had on the show, because Violet is really articulate. Violet has a lot of words to describe drag, talking about the high saturation of a look and talking about how it enhanced the floor show, talking about the specific fangs that Jaharia was using and suggesting a different item in order to enhance the look. Violet was brilliant this week. Have to put those props out there. So first off, we do have Jaharia. Speaking of her, I was into this look at first. I love the idea of a daddy vampire, but I think the plush nature of it brought me out of horror. And also it wasn't quite black and white, it was very maroon. The monsters kept calling it beige, but this was very maroon to me. I enjoy the idea behind this. I think it looks cuter than it's meaning to be, and it loses a lot of that old horror vibe that I think the challenge was really trying to hammer in. I think Jaharia is someone who easily gets in their own way when they start thinking too much. It's the way that they come across. A lot of artists are like that, where when you are starting to maybe compare your journey to others, you get in your own head and you might not think you're good enough, and so you just sort of veer off into another corner rather than sell whatever you're doing. And maybe this look wasn't the best, but I think their presentation is really what knocked it into the bottom, because they had almost no confidence while they were presenting. So I think this whole situation with Pi taking credit for being the leader of the group, I think that put Jaharia in a bad headspace, and I just don't think she was ever able to recover from that, on top of the look being kind of mid. Next is Aurora, and I really loved this look until my eyes panned down. I think the waist up is really fascinating and interesting. I like the prosthetic work. I would have never suspected that this was Aurora. And I think going outside of the box is a smart idea in a competition. It shows that you are willing to be outside of who you are. However, Jaharia kind of nailed it, is that every time that she's gone out of her box, she's landed in the bottom. Or just didn't do well. And I think the only times where Aurora has done really well in the competition was when she stuck to her lane of drag, and that was in the musical and in the Ghost Challenge. And that's where she was doing glamour. In every other thing, she sort of just faltered because it's not her drag, and the Boulets really gravitate towards you stamping your brand and who you are, and that brand identity translating to the floor show. And this just didn't do that. Violet reading her for the shoes and having that very slow moment where she just stared and made eye contact and let the awkwardness linger and then went in on it. Mama, Miss Violet came ready to put these girls in their lane again, and Violet's critiques got her together. Next is Yuri. And this was, to me, very Demogorgon. It was very Cenobite. It did not read, I think, the way that the story meant it to be. I think there is something very scary about it. There is something terrifying about a glamorous, feminine-looking creature. And that's very much what this was doing. It was giving high glam while also being a little scary. It was more glamour to me than horror. It met the parameters of the assignment, but it was just a little boxy. The gown itself was more priest-like to me, so it didn't read floral. I think that it could have used so many more details to punch it up. What this truly read to me was the puny tree in Paper Mario Thousand Year Door. That might be a deep cut reference, but Google it and you'll see what I mean. This rightfully was in the bottom because it just wasn't the strongest look, and I don't think it had as much of a POV as I think the Boulets were looking for, and especially what the challenge called for. Next out is Asia Consent. I like this look quite a bit. It is kind of outer worldly, and it exists in its own universe. When I think old school horror, when I think black and white horror, with the references that were given, I don't know if my brain goes to the monarchy. Yes, the monarchy is scary and terrifying, and royalty is evil, and there is something very scary about all that. That's not where my brain went. So this was definitely its own lane, and so much like the Boulets were very conflicted how they felt about it, and Big Boulet seemed very adamantly against this look to the point where they pull out their phone to read the original prompt to explain that Asia did it wrong, and Little Boulet desperately defending it. I also feel very conflicted on how I feel about this because it's not the parameters of the challenge. It is somehow the parameters of the challenge. It reminds me of some things that Neo Hoodoo did, where it's like, you are existing in your own universe, your own field of reality that you are doing your drag in, that somehow is working, but it's not supposed to. And I think a lot of that has to do with the performance. Asia went out there and killed it. The tentacles, I thought, was odd. I didn't quite understand them in relation to the rest of the look. It felt like a sci-fi version of the 1800s. Like if you were to go deep into the future, like go bring us to 3824, and they're doing a silent film about the monarchy. They would portray the monarchy as this like octopus woman, because that would be the alien actor that would show up to the casting call. It read that way, which is a flashback to the future. I don't know. It worked, but it didn't at the same time, and I was kind of obsessed, but I also thought like, is this the challenge? I feel very conflicted on it in the same way the Boulets were. So I don't know. If Gray wasn't here, would Asia have gotten it, or would this have gone to Auntie? Speaking of Gray, Gray is out next, and I was enamored by this look. It gives me goosebumps looking at it. The tiny hands that were in the front, just standing there, and it being a statue. And then the wings moving, and it's this creature that casts a shadow over everything. It was terrifying. It's scary. It accomplishes what it's meant to do. It freaks me out. And yet I am somehow entranced by it. I want to get closer to it, to look at it. It's very much the same vein as video game monsters like Slender Man. You are so scary and I want to run away from you, but I'm also so fascinated by what you are. I want to look at you more even though you are probably going to kill me. I think this reads perfectly the challenge and taking a twist on old horror movies and bringing it to the now. Very well done for Gray, very well earned win. Next out is Auntie Heroine, and the face is absolutely terrifying. I quite like the face and the crown. I thought those were really nice. I thought everything else, to me, Auntie, I know you're watching this, please mute this part of the video. To me it read, I own this gown already. It didn't have as much flair, I think, as the mask and the crown did, but it was a very effective look. I enjoyed the big mantis hands. They were scary. I loved the acting. They moved the hands and the head in a way that looked like a creature, and it scared me, and I think that's what the challenge was. Finally, last we have Pie doing a monster under your bed. The same problem that the Boulets had with Jaharia's looking a little too cute, I thought Pie's looked a little cute. It was more Nightmare Before Christmas to me. This seemed like something Lock, Shock, and Barrel would wear. It didn't come across to me scary. It didn't translate as a monster under the bed. Overall, it was just like one of those scary, cute plushies that you'd find in a crane game that you'd take home and snuggle. Because it's so scary that it's somehow cute. So for me, Pie was exceptionally low this week, along with Jaharia and Yuri. The bottom two is, however, Jaharia and Aurora, and they have to go through the vacuum bed of death extermination challenge. I would have been cooked. I wouldn't have done this. This is absolutely something I would have never participated in, but they both did the thing, and Aurora, unfortunately, has been exterminated, which last week I said that Aurora was in my top 4, so I'm like gagged that she's out. I really thought maybe with her perspective on drag and her lane that she's in, I thought she would really commit to glamour and make it all the way to the end, and I'm disappointed that she didn't latch on enough to her star power to propel her to the end. Nothing is more frustrating for me as a viewer than to see someone who is so good at what they do and just not be able to connect those pieces when they get in front of a camera, that they're trying to be someone that they're not. If you're a low-key, high-fashion diva, be a low-key, high-fashion diva. You don't need to be more than that. The audience is going to like who you are because you are doing it so well that it translates perfectly to the camera. I am very curious what we're gonna get next week. I am predicting that we're either going to get a sci-fi challenge or we're gonna get a D&D challenge. That's kind of what I'm expecting as of right now for the following week. And as for who's out next, I think that it's very clear that Yuri is sort of on their way out of the competition. They don't seem like they're gonna last too much longer, and truly, I can't tell how much time Jaharia has. It seems like they really want to make it, and they really want to get to the end, but I just don't know if they will be able to get out of their own way. This, I'm being too nice, I need to just focus on myself, people are backstabbing me. I think that's just gonna get in their own way too much, and I worry that that will sabotage them. And I worry that maybe it'll come to Taria and Yuri will just outperform by a little bit. But we shall see. Let me know what your thoughts were on the episode this week and what your perception was. What do you think is coming next? And I will see y'all on the flip. Thank you for watching. Hey, thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, make sure to click that like button. And if you want to see more, hit subscribe. Goodbye.